Welcome MTG friends, zealots. Let's do, yes, another Commander deck tech. We're doing Roalesk Apex Hybrid out of War of the Spark. This is in Simic colors, green, blue. This is a 2 colors, green, green, blue. Legendary creature, human mutant. It's a 4/5 body with flying and trample. This is all about the +1/+1 counters, y'all. Alright, when Roalesk Apex Hybrid enters the battlefield, put 2 1/1 counters on another target creature you control, so not itself, another. When Roalesk dies, proliferate, then proliferate again. So if you don't know what proliferate is, it's choose any number of permanents and or players, then give each another counter of that kind. So whether it's in the form of infect counters again on players, or -1 counters or +1 counters, counters is where it's at, y'all. All right, so as in all of our deck techs, let's go ahead and go through the packages. This one is super duper fun to play. So let's go ahead and take a look. So we got removal, not a ton of removal, but some of the staples that you'd expect. Couple tutors, a big ramp package because after all we are in green. We got some control, just 1 protection piece. Some alt-win category, as well as counters, the land package, the draw package, and of course, proliferate. Alright, so we've already talked about the commander. What we're going to be doing with this commander is a lot of creatures that involve +1/+1 counters, a few that involve tokens, and then we have lots of proliferation. We do even have a couple stank infect cards in here. But this isn't an infect deck. Do not get me wrong. Not an infect deck. Alright, with all of our Commander deck takes, please make sure you subscribe if you're new and hit that like button. Let's go ahead and jump in. We'll do removal first. And of course, staple in green with removal, beast within, destroy target permanent. Its controller creates a 3/3 green beast creature token. Alright, next up in removal, Cyclonic Rift. This is just an oldie but goodie. Return target non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand, or overload for 7 and do it to all of the non-land permanents of your opponents. It's super gross, and you should be very familiar with this card if you've seen our deck techs in the past. Imprisoned in the Moon. It's a 3-drop in blue, enchant creature, land, or planeswalker. Enchanted permanent is a colorless land with tap, add colors to your mana pool, and it loses all abilities and card types. This is great, I'm going to say it 3 times, great spot removal. Very nice. Alright, next up we got Rapid Hybridization. It's a 1-drop, which makes this super powerful. Destroy target creature, it can't be regenerated. That creature's controller creates a 3/3 green frog lizard creature token. Yes. Need I say more? No. Alright, Void Slime is very versatile, and that's why we have it in here, and it's in our Simic colors. Green, blue, blue. Instant speed, which is very good. Counter target spell, activated ability, or triggered ability. So if you have something popping off in your opponent, you can shut that bad boy down, especially if it's already on the battlefield and it's an activated ability or triggered. Very nice, very versatile card. Alright, we have, I believe, just 1 protection piece here, and that's Heroic Intervention. Permanents you control gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. Alright, we got 2 alt-win conditions. It's Simic Ascendancy. It's in our colors, green, blue. Enchantment for 3, you can put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. Now here's the nice thing about this card if you're not super familiar. Whenever 1 or more 1/1 counters are put on a creature you control, put that many growth counters on Simic Ascendancy at the beginning of your upkeep. If Simic Ascendancy has 20 or more growth counters on it, you win the game. Now, that's a very nice alt-win. You're going to have a real hard time getting to this because this thing will immediately get a target on its back, and people will want to remove this as quickly as they can. Because with this build, you can get that up to 20 incredibly quickly. Strixhaven Stadium, it's a 3-drop. You can also tap it for mana, colorless, and when you do, you put a point counter on Strixhaven Stadium. And what's nice is now, ever since the rule change of you can't have burn mana, unused mana that then burns and then burns you for 1 damage each burns unspent mana. And maybe you're newer to this and you don't realize that used to be a thing. Well, anyways, it's not a thing now, so this does not hurt you ever when it comes to mana. So, whenever a creature deals combat damage to you, remove a point counter from Strixhaven Stadium. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to an opponent, put a point counter on Strixhaven Stadium. Then if it has 10 or more point counters on it, remove them all, and that player loses the game. So this is very nice. You hit one of your players, you remove the counters, they lose the game. Boom, shalakalak. There we go. Very nice. All right, we got some draw action. We got Fathom Mage. It's 2 green-blue with Evolve. It's a 1/1 wizard. It's got Evolve. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, if that creature has greater power or toughness than this creature, put a 1/1 counter on this creature. So this can get big real quick, especially early on. Whenever a 1/1 counter is put on Fathom Mage, you may draw a card. So it's got some double duty. You can get some +1 counters on there. You can do some drawing, etc., etc., etc. Guardian Project, very nice draw mechanic. Whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, if it doesn't have the same name as another creature you control or a creature card in your graveyard, draw a card. And since we are playing Commander, folks, this thing is inevitably going to be drawing you tons of cards. Inspiring Call at instant speed, which is very nice. Draw a card for each creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it, which is going to be, if not all of them, most of them. Those creatures gain indestructible until end of turn. Just an added little bonus. Midnight Clock at a Throne of Eldraine. This is just fantastic, especially in Commander EDH. You put it down for 3, and then it's a mana rock for you that gives you blue. And then for 3, you can add a an hour counter on it, and once it hits 12, that's when you draw 7 cards. Now that is spicy meatballs right there. So you get to refill your hand, you get to have the extra mana tap in blue. You do have to exile it once you draw 7 more, but dude, that's pretty awesomeness maximus, especially in blue, where you get 7. You know, Wheel of Fortune shenanigans, but in blue. Love it. Love it. And it's only for you, not for everybody. All right, Ristic Study. Yes, the card we love, but the players that play against you hate. It is whenever an opponent casts a spell, you may draw a card unless they pay 1. And you would just be shocked how often you end up drawing cards because of that thing. Tatyova Benthic Druid. Woo! Say that 4 times fast. It is a 5-drop. I don't like that it's 5, but it does some shenanigans. It's a 3/3. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life and draw a card. So, I mean, that's pretty schnazzy. And 5 isn't too terrible. Tracios Triton hero in our colors, of course. 1/3 legendary creature wizard. For 4, you can scry 1, then reveal the top card of your library. If it's a land card, put it in the battlefield tapped. Otherwise, draw a card. That's just great. This one's strong enough to even be your commander. Not in this build, but you could certainly build a deck out of this bad boy. All right, we got Toothy Imaginary Friend. It's a 4-drop 1/1, and it's got Partner, which means that you can also put Pure Imaginative Rascal into your hand when Toothy hits the battlefield. When this creature enters the battlefield, target player may put Pure into their hand from the library, then shuffle. So, it also lets you tutor a very specific card, which we'll get to later. When you draw a card, put a 1/1 counter on Toothy Imaginary Friend. When Toothy leaves the battlefield, draw a card for each 1/1 counter on it. So this is synergizing very well with all of our 1/1 counter stuff going on. All right, we got Urban Evolution for 5, draw 3 cards. You may play an additional land this turn. And good old Uro, Titan of Nature's Wrath. It's really gone down in price, so you can really pick this up for a reasonable price now. When Uro enters battlefield, sacrifice it unless it escaped. And of course, that's because it got banned and all over the place. Whenever Uro enters the battlefield or attacks, you gain 3 life and draw a card. Then you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. You can ramp real quick with this bad boy. And it's got the extra bonus of Escape. For 2 green, 2 blue, exile 5 cards, and then you can cast this card from your graveyard, y'all. All right, Evolution Sage. We're into Proliferate now. Whenever land enters the battlefield under your control, Proliferate. Since this is our first Proliferate card, we'll explain. Choose any number of permanents and or players, then give each another counter of each kind already there. So like I said at the top of the video, Proliferate does infect counters, -1 counters, +1 counters. Just fabulous for this kind of a build. And it's only an uncommon. Flux Channeler, another uncommon out of War of Spark. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, Proliferate. And it's got a 2/2 body as a wizard. Alright, Inexorable Tide, 5-drop enchantment. Whenever you cast a spell, Proliferate. Merfolk Skydiver. In our colors, it's a 2-drop flying. When Merfolk Skydiver enters battlefield, put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. And then for 5, that would be 6. For 5, you can Proliferate. So it's just a very nice engine and an early drop for the early game. Sword of Truth and Justice. The Proliferate Sword. It's a 3-drop equipped creature, gets +2/+2, and has protection for white and from blue. Whenever an equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, put a 1/1 counter on a creature you control. Then Proliferate. It costs you a measly 2 to equip. This thing is just fabuloso when it comes to Proliferate and when it comes to +1 counters. And it's got the added bonus of having protection from blue and from white. Mainly from blue, which is nice. Alrighty, moving on. We got Tesseract's Gambit. It's 3 and then Phyrexian mana, which means you can pay 2 life for that 4th pip. Draw 2 cards, then Proliferate. Alright, we got a couple tutors in here, including Green Sun Zenith for X green. Search your library for a green creature card with converted mana cost X or less. Put it on the battlefield, then shuffle your library. Shuffle Green Sun Zenith into its owner's hand. So we can go fetch a couple utility creatures for the win, for board stabilization, etc., etc. All right, we got Mystical Tutor. That is like my least favorite version of the artwork. There we go, there we go. Search the library for an instant or sorcery, put on top of your library. Only costs you 1. Nice little staple in blue. Speaking of staples, we got Counterspell for 2. Counter target spell. Fierce Guardianship, same thing for 3, or it costs you nothing if you have your commander out. Boom, shalakalak. Fuel for the Cause for 4, counter target spell, then Proliferate. And I don't mind paying 4 for this. That is just fine, especially in this kind of a build with the Proliferate mechanics. And we have the added bonus of countering a spell. Yeah, buddy. Yeah, buddy. All right, mana drain for 2, counter target spell, and then we get colorless mana, the next main phase of ours, where it's the countered spell. So that's pretty bueno-licious. Now, if you don't have this card, you don't have the budget for it, just swap it out for a 3-drop counter spell of your choosing. There's plenty out there, no big whoop. Swan Song for 1. Counter target enchantment, instant, or sorcery spell. Its controller creates a 2/2 bird creature token with flying. I used to like edit those kinds of things out, but you know what? Nah, we're doing it live. Not technically, but hey, whatever. All right, we got some counter action. This deck is all about counters, man. It's awesome. Branching Evolution for 3. If one or more 1/1 counters would be put on a creature you control, twice that many. Yeah, that's right, twice. Goes on and instead. I call this baby doubling season. Contagion Clasp. Now this is really fun for 2. When Contagion Clasp enters the battlefield, put a -1 counter on target creature, then Proliferate for 4. So we can do some board clearing, spot clearing, and we can also be buffing up our creatures as well. So very, very nice. The list, huh? Although that looks the same. I didn't realize the list had that one. All right, when Contagion Engine enters the battlefield, put a -1 counter on each creature target player controls. So even more powerful than the Clasp. And then for 4, you can Proliferate, then Proliferate again. Whew. That is some jank with some stank, y'all. Jank with some stank. If you're with me still, you should put that in the comments. Jank with the stank. Thumbs up. Corrupted Conscience. It is 5-drop enchanted creature you control. Enchanted creature has, you guessed it, folks, Infect. Again, this is not an Infect deck, I promise you, but there are a few cards in here that are going to really let us hit for the win if we're stalled out on the board. And of course, Doubling Season, and that is also not my favorite artwork. There we go, that's what I like to see. If an effect would put 1 or more tokens into play under control, it does twice, and if it puts a +1 counter on it, or a counter, if an effect would place 1 or more counters on a permanent you control, it places twice that many on that permanent instead. Boom, boom, shalaka-laka-laka. Yeah, I like it. Now, keep in mind that's under your control, so a little bit different in terms of infect and stuff. All right, followed footsteps for 5 enchant creature. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a token that is a copy of enchanted creature onto the battlefield. Now, this doesn't have to be one of your creatures, keep in mind, so this is pretty awesome as Maximus. Hardened Scales. This is a completely swappable card, but it does fit within this deck. If one or more 1/1 counters would be put on a creature you control, that many +1 is put on it instead. So it's not as cool as Doubling Season, but hey, still great, especially if somebody just wiped Doubling Season off the board and you need a little bit more help in the +1/+1 area. All right, Hydroid Crassus. This is doing double duty for us. When you cast a spell, you gain half X life and draw half X cards. Round down each time, flying trample, and it gets +1/+1 for X. So this thing is doing all sorts of stuff. I really, really like this card in Simic. Mid-game, late game, it's going to get us more draw. Mid-game, late game, it's going to be gigantic. And even in the early game, you can get a couple extra cards for your troubles. Incubation Druid, also in the counter realm. Add 1 mana of any color type that's a land you control could produce. If Incubation Druid has a 1/1 counter on it, add 3 mana of that type instead. There's a real good chance it's going to have a +1 counter. So we're getting ramp off of this, and we're getting some big-bodied, beefy stuff once you adapt it. It's also got 5, adapt 3, which means you put 3 1/1 counters on it. So if you have some doubling season effects going on, this thing starts getting really big really quickly. Colonian Hydra. I love Hydras, people. It's a 5-drop trample. Colonian Hydra. Did I say that right? Colonian. Yes. Blah. Holy shnikes. Whenever Colonian Hydra attacks, double the number of 1/1 counters on each creature you control. This thing is bananas when it comes to 1/1 counters. Now we got Coma Cosmos Serpent. It's a 7-drop, which is a little spendy, but it's got some really interesting things built into it. 1, it can't be countered. 2, it comes into play, and at each upkeep, that means your opponents as well, you create a 3/3 blue serpent creature token named Coma's Coil. Now, you can do 2 things with these coils. You can, 1, tap target permanent and its activated abilities can't be activated this turn, and that's for sacking one of your serpents. And then 2, you gain indestructible until end of turn. Now, so it's got built-in protection as well as not being able to be countered. This thing is pretty great. It's also completely swappable for another beefy, awesome creature of your choosing. But this one is fun, and I recommend you play it in here because it really will be fun to play. All right, next up we have Master Biomancer for 4. Each other creature you control enters the battlefield with a number of additional 1/1 counters on it equal to Master Biomancer's power. And as a mutant is addition to its other types. Ooh, almost had a tongue twister there. Needs no further explanation. All right, we have just a little bit more infect shenanigans going on, and this Phyrexian Swarmlord for 6. It's a 4/4 infect. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a 1/1 green insect creature token with infect on the battlefield for each poison counter your opponents have. So, like I said, this isn't an infect deck, but that really can start adding up, especially if you have this on the battlefield and you're swinging with it. Yes. Yes, indeed. All right, the other half to Toothy. Per Imaginative Rascal for 3. Partner with Toothy, which means you can go fetch Toothy and vice versa. If 1 or more counters would be put on a permanent your team controls, that means you in essence, that many plus 1 of each of those kinds of counters are put on the permanent instead. There you go. Alrighty then. Prime Speaker Zagana. It also is a little spendy in the mana realm. It's a 2 green, green, blue, blue. It's a 1/1 wizard. Prime Speaker Zagana enters the battlefield with X 1/1 counters on it, where X is the greatest power among other creatures you control. When Prime Speaker Zagana enters the battlefield, draw cards equal to its power. Now, once you tease this thing out, you are likely going to have some beefy creatures as long as there hasn't been too many board wipes by your opponents. All right, Tanazir Quandrix. Whew. All right, there you go. Out of Strixhaven, it is. And I believe this is first printing. Yes, it is. All right, Flying Trample Elder Dragon for 4/4. Whenever Tanazir Quandrix enters the battlefield, double the number of 1/1 counters on target creature you control. When Tanazir Quandrix attacks, you may have the base power and toughness of other creatures you control become equal to Tanazir Quandrix. Oh. Cards are so wordy now. Basically, it just gets the toughness till end of turn. Oh my god. I beg for the days back when cards were just so much simpler. But you know what? Those days are gone, I think. Triumph of the Hordes. I think our last infect shenanigans. It's a 4-drop sorcery until end of turn. Creatures you control get +1 and gain trample and infect. Boom. So this can be an OTK situation, 1-turn kill, especially if your board is wide and you can proliferate and do all sorts of stuff that this deck can do. Vigor. Talk about +1 counters. Oh, I love me some Vigor. It's a 3 green 6/6 trampler. If damage would be dealt to another creature you control, prevent that damage. Put a 1/1 counter on that creature for each 1 damage prevented this way. When Vigor is put into a graveyard from anywhere, shuffle into your library. So this is really nice with all the counter shenanigans. Plus, you can tease this out with a tutor, get it on the board, swing. Your creatures don't die. They just get +1 counters. There's all sorts of fun stuff that you can do with that thing. All right, Voral of the Hullclade. It is a 3-drop 1/4. You can tap for 2, double the number of each kind of counters on target artifact, creature, or land. Boom. Boom, yes, in the room. Vorinclex, Monstrous Rider. This is a little spendy right now, but it is a doubling season in a body for 6. Trample Haste, if you would put 1 or more counters on a permanent or player, put twice that many. And then it does half that many for permanents of your opponents if they try to do it. If an opponent would put 1 or more counters on it, it does it in half. So if they put 1/1 counter, it does Goose Egg. Love it. Love it. Zagana Utopian Speaker for 4. Whenever Zagana Utopian Speaker enters the battlefield, if you control another creature with a 1/1 counter on it, draw a card. Then it also has Adapt 4 for 6. That just means you get to put 4 1/1 counters on this bad boy. And then if you have doubling season effects going on, this thing just becomes ridiculous. All right, we're going to really go through the ramp pretty quickly. Arcane Signet, we all know what that does. Birds of Paradise, Cultivate, Elvish Mystic, Mana Dork, another Mana Dork, Growth Spiral. I love this in Simic. Draw a card. You may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. Now, what's really nice is this is at instant speed, so you can do it at the end of your opponent's turn. Gyre Sage for 2 with Evolve. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under control, if that creature has greater power, you can put a +1/+1 on this creature and add green for each 1/1 counter on Gyre Sage. Hull Breacher. Oh, me loveth the Hull Breacher. So if your opponent's about to draw an extra card in the turn, you drop this bad boy and then you create a token instead. Another Mana Dork. And then Seedborn Muse. Totally swappable out of this deck, by the way, Seedborn Muse. Untap all permanents you control during each other player's untap step. I just really like this card in green, but you can easily swap that out. Simic Signet in our colors. Sky Shroud to go fetch 2 forest cards for 4. And notice they do not come in tapped, they come in untapped. Soul Ring, of course. Barkchannel is the blue on one side, green on the other. Breeding Pool, we got our Shockland in there. Command Tower. Fabled Passage to crack if you have 4 lands, including this one that you can crack and bring it in untapped. Then we're running 12 forests. We got another dually in here, forest or island. That comes in untapped if you have a forest or island. We're running 11 islands. Karn's Bastion for the Proliferate mechanic for 4 tap Proliferate. Misty Rainforest to go fetch something we might need. Rejuvenating Springs. This is the one if you have more than 2 opponents. Comes in untapped. Tropical Island, our original gangster island, and almost lost my brain entirely. Island and Forest wrapped into one. You can easily swap this out. In fact, I have it in the version that doesn't even show the price. So revise, I have this, so I run it. Yeah, you don't need to go dump $700 some on a tropical island. Just put in a fetch land, or a dual land of your choice. All right, Vine Glimmer Snarl at a Strixhaven. This one is a green and blue if you show a forest or island. All right, and this one's brand new out of Modern Horizons 2. I cracked one of these in a pre-release, and I liked it so much that I decided it needed to go in this deck. Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth. I think we're going to see this in a lot of commander decks with 2 or 3 colors. Each land is a forest in addition to its other land types. And what's even cooler about this is any deck that you put together that has Forest Walk creatures, drop this sucker on the battlefield, and now Forest Walk gets you through everywhere. Yeah, buddy. All right, we come full circle to the Commander. All right, thanks for sticking with us. This is a fun deck, really janky, lots of +1 counter action. I think you should try it out. It'll be lots of fun. Put something in the comments. Make sure you hit subscribe if you hadn't already. Hit that like button. It really helps the channel, really helps me. And positive reinforcement is always welcome, my friends. All right, thanks for checking us out. Check out the other episodes. Cheers!